Rick Ector joins us from Rick Firearm Academy in Detroit. Rick, how you doing, sir?
Man, I am many things today. I am above all else. I am encouraged, optimistic, might even be euphoric, but it's always a feeling of privilege to be invited to the show.
Well, listen, we love having you on here. I said it was time for your semi-regular feature. We like having you on when there are armed citizen stories to discuss, and there are a lot of armed citizen stories to discuss in Detroit these days. WJBK, police called it a Old West-style gun battle in the middle of the street in the middle of the day. East Lance, Concord Street blocked to through traffic while police reconstructed the scene. Neighbors gave eyewitness accounts. We're told two neighborhood watch members were doing some repairs to a car when they were approached by two strangers with guns. The pair tried to rob the men and steal one of the cars. One of the victims was shot in the leg when he tried to wrestle the gun away. In that moment, the other victim pulled his gun and fired, killing one suspect and shooting the other, who got away. Meanwhile, neighbors are supporting their friend who they say did what was necessary to save his own life. Lutricia Elliott says if they wouldn't have had a gun, they would have been dead. And you know, that's the thing, Rick. You can have all of this talk of gun control, making city streets safer, and we need to, limit the legal availability of firearms in order to reduce the violence on the streets. But the bottom line is the bad guys have guns. The bad guys know where to get them, regardless of what the laws are. And so it is a really good thing that law-abiding people in Detroit can defend themselves against these bad guys, because you should not have to worry about getting robbed when you're working on your car in your driveway.
You know what? And we've even talked about the ex-chief of police who was guilty of only having the audacity to mow his front lawn during broad daylight. You know, make no mistake about it, crime here is severe, it's rough. But you know what? One of our common talking points when I come on is that Detroit is not Chicago, it's not New York. Law-abiding citizens have the ability to protect themselves, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, man, it is so encouraging and optimistic and even euphoric to see that people are responding and putting the word out to the bad guys that if you select folks for victimization, people are willing to fight to protect themselves.
Yeah, absolutely right. And, again, you see these stories like this. Another story here from the Detroit Free Press. A man who was shot over the weekend by a cab driver remains hospitalized as police continue to investigate the incident. A 32-year-old man entered the 58-year-old cab driver's vehicle at 11:30 p.m. on Saturday. The man produced a weapon and demanded money. The driver then pulled out his gun and shot him, police said. The driver was not injured. Now, what's amazing, here's the headline: police investigating shooting of Detroit cab driver over the weekend, man still in critical condition. The driver wasn't actually injured, so the headline's wrong. And this was a story about a cab driver. The headline should say, cab driver defends himself from armed robber still in critical condition.
You know, and it's not lost on me, and maybe they just have a proofreading editorial issue. But, you know, I've seen it in story after story where the headlines are not completely descriptive of what actually gets reported in the body. But, that story was of particular interest to me because we had a situation here locally where it seemed as though cab drivers were being targeted, and about 4 cab drivers had been shot, and then a number of them had actually died as a result of their injuries. And fortunately for me, I was invited to participate in a meeting with approximately 40 cab drivers to talk safety and talk firearms. And then I see this story, man, and I'm on like a natural euphoric high right now to see that there's a cab driver out there that defended himself.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I remember years ago, and the fight has sort of been dropped in Washington, D.C., but a woman named Sandra Seegers, who was the taxi cab commissioner in D.C., was fighting to have cab drivers be able to carry firearms while they were on the job because it was a quirk in D.C. law. You couldn't actually own a gun in your home, but you could own a gun in your business. Now the registration process was still very difficult. You were impossible for handguns, but you would actually have people who would have a rifle or a shotgun in their business. And Sandra Seeger says, look, cab drivers can't do that, but they're at risk of being robbed. It's a dangerous profession. They need to be able to defend themselves and protect themselves. Obviously, fell on deaf ears in Washington D.C. But Rick, I mean, we talk about. You think about some of these careers, some of these professions that are dangerous. We talk about pizza delivery drivers
Yeah, and,
who
one community said that they won't come cross the city's border, with their neighboring community. But in Detroit, my personal opinion has always been that with the way things are today, if you have a business and you interact with the public and you deal in cash, there is a great opportunity that you will be selected for a crime by an armed bad guy. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean that's the truth, and that's the way it is. We've even had where service delivery workers from the local cable company were getting victimized and robbed while they were, deploying, cable service into to the community. So I mean, it's bad, but here's the thing, man. Talking point we bring up all the time. We have the ability to protect ourselves and these myths that people come up with that, the regular citizens don't have the tools and you have to be some street cop with 30 years of experience. These are all myths because these stories are proving it. It's not only true, but we have the proof.
Absolutely right. I got to ask you, Rick. Every time we have you on the program, we sort of talk about just the latest with what's going on in Detroit. I don't know if you saw the story earlier today, but I guess there's a state senator who is now proposing just dissolving the city government, absorbing Detroit into the Wayne County government. Governor Snyder said, "Well, we're not ruling anything out. We want to see Detroit make good decisions and get itself back on track, but not ruling anything out." I don't know if you've read this story or you know anything about it, but what do you think about that idea? And can Detroit be saved?
Absolutely, it can be saved. Any suggestion that it's beyond saving or it's impossible is a pipe dream. Maybe somebody's floating some plan out there, but for us citizens, residents of the city, in a bit, it's a little insulting. But you know what? At the end of the day, we are in a huge mess. Make no mistake about it. We had a huge hand in getting there. But you know what? In terms of solving it, I don't think absorbing the city of Detroit into the county or any other portion of the state is a solution. And personally, I think it's a non-starter.
All right. Well, listen, Rick, glad you could join us on the program tonight, sir. Always good talking to you, and hope we can do it again soon.
There's one thing I want to just quickly jump out, man.
Yeah.
That, I'm really active in terms of arming people and getting them prepared, and a special interest of mine has been women and providing free shooting lessons, and that's something that I'm really pushing, and I'm trying to find means to support of doing that. And I've got in touch with Ed Levine, a guy from Virginia Open Carry. He runs that I Love Guns and CoffeeChallengeCoin.com. But he presented a design for me to do a challenge coin. And if individuals come out to my blog, Legally Armed in Detroit, and they want to support and purchase one of these challenge coins, the proceeds is going towards training women to use firearms. And I'm a huge supporter of that.
All right. Well, we love that, Rick. Thank you so much, man. Keep up the great work, and look forward to talking again very soon.
I shall give Mr. Gray, Mr. Pop, and Mr. Price my regards.
I always do. Thank you so much, Rick Ector from Rick's Firearm Academy of Detroit.